Welcome to EDT Talks, where we discuss all things bodybuilding and beyond.
Today's topic of conversation is what constitutes the most effective contest prep and how can we leverage each variable to the best of our ability to bring our best look possible. When someone thinks about the sport of bodybuilding from the objective eye, the experienced eye, they'll see the jacked physiques, the spray tans, the bright lights, the music, and the cheering fans, and in turn, it seems like it is quite a glamorous endeavor. And don't get me wrong, it is a blast to be a bodybuilder. But the road to get there is not the most glamorous thing in the world. In fact, it's quite challenging for anyone who has pursued it and reached true contest-ready leanness. Now, in order to get contest lean, there are a multitude of variables that we need to consider, and we need to use those variables to the best of our ability and not try to rush the process, not try to force something that's not there, and not put ourselves in a situation where a prep might not make the most sense. This is why the most important variable that a bodybuilder can leverage to their advantage is time. There are bodybuilders who can do preparations in very short spans and do quite well, but is this the exception to the rule? Perhaps. Most athletes would benefit from taking more time to prepare themselves for their show day. More time leading into a contest prep, talking about 16, 20, even 25 or more weeks, is going to allow a process to be smoother, more streamlined. This means that we're going to be able to have more time to make necessary changes to ensure our body gets ready in time. We're going to make sure that nutritional adjustments do not need to be overly aggressive, that we have sufficient time to collect data on each athlete, how they respond over the course of this process, so we have information on how to peak them at the tail end of the preparation. This is also important to consider because performance preservation is pivotal to hold muscle mass as we get leaner, and extreme muscle loss is not an inevitability when we are dieting. If we push too hard, too fast, and we go into sessions exhausted, sure, we're going to lose performance. And in turn, if we lose performance, we are slowly going to lose muscle mass. A longer preparation gives us the ability to make smaller adjustments, to preserve strength more sustainably, and in turn have a fresher, healthier looking physique when show day comes. Now, taking time does not solely apply to the dieting phase, the fat loss phase of the bodybuilding world. People should be willing to take time before they even consider pursuing a bodybuilding preparation. And when pursuing a bodybuilding preparation, when having a goal to step on stage, we need to look at the parameters that are involved with bodybuilding. Now, we all know bodybuilding implies the building of a body. This means having sufficient muscle mass. If we look at our physique, are we in a position where we have sufficient muscle mass to meet the needs of the division that we are seeking? Different divisions are going to have different degrees of muscularity, and building muscle takes time. Building muscle is not a game of weeks leading into a prep. It is years and years of effort. And building muscle will vary in terms of rate of change person to person, but in order to decide, or in order to determine whether we are truly ready to pursue a prep, we need to ensure that we have sufficient muscle mass so we can truly be competitive when we get to game day and we are not dieting down with no foundation of musculature. This is why the off-season setting for bodybuilders, the improvement phase, the homework phase, is where us bodybuilders spend the most time. Muscle mass is living, breathing tissue. and it requires time to slowly accrue. Body weight gain, just because we are gaining weight in a rapid period of time in an off-season setting, if we're eating high amounts of food, it doesn't automatically translate to muscle mass, unfortunately. We wish it did. It'd be really nice if it did, but it's simply not the case. We need to be keeping tabs on our visuals over an extended period of time in conjunction with our scale weight gain, in conjunction with our performance in the gym. These are very basic metrics we can use to determine whether we are actually making positive change in the off season. And leveraging time in the off season is going to give us the ability to have successful preparations. Again, this comes back to collecting data over the course of a calendar year, over the course of multiple years, if someone is taking a hiatus from the stage or they're taking years before competing. Now, when we flip this back to the fat loss phase setting, the contest prep setting, if we are taking a very long time to add muscle mass, could be 30 weeks, could be a year, could be 2 years in an extended growth phase, why not be willing to take 20 to 30 weeks to get contest ready? We have worked so hard to gain this muscle mass to ensure we have sufficient muscularity for our show. We want to ensure we have conditioning to complement this muscularity. And this is the second variable of being a bodybuilder on show day, is being conditioned, ensuring we are in true show ready shape where every detail is shown based on division parameters. Sometimes 12 to 16 weeks is not enough. We need to be honest with ourselves when we see our physiques and ask, how much time will it take to pull off this body fat? How much body fat do I have to lose in order to be ready? How many weeks do I need to ensure this is an efficient approach without compromising performance, without compromising too much muscle mass, or ultimately just driving ourselves into the ground with tiredness, with stress? There is a more effective way of doing this. Taking time allows us to do it that way. A very general rule, but a useful one for sustainable fat loss heading into a fat loss phase or a contest prep, is aiming to lose about 1% of our body weight per week. And a bodybuilder who's had an efficient off season usually will have about 20% of their body weight to lose. So if we took 20 weeks to be show ready, but allow ourselves to have multiple weeks to ease into a peaking process, 3 to 4 weeks maybe, this is about 24 weeks. And this is on the lower end of a timeline. We can take more time if we need to. Sometimes having a pre-preparation phase to ease into the process, not have to make a full 180 when there's social settings involved in our lives, because humans are not machines. Humans live their lives outside of bodybuilding sometimes. Having some wiggle room is going to aid this process. A few weeks to find the groove again, and that adds on to that 24 weeks. That may be 26 weeks. That may be 28 weeks. And as I mentioned before, this may lead into about 30 weeks of work leading into show day. It's a slow, steady, efficient, and sustainable process. And I think it's important that we don't conflate fat loss exclusively to prep. A preparation is not just fat loss. A preparation is ensuring we have control of all the variables necessary to make the best decisions to lead our body into a show day. And this is why effective bodybuilding implies being efficient with our work each and every day. Now, there's going to be room to be human over the course of this process and have fun with friends and family and loved ones, go out to dinner, host events, have some fun food. There's a time and place for that. Heading into a fat loss phase, we do want to be more calculated. Bodybuilding itself is essentially about control and manipulating variables we can control to ensure we see efficient outcomes. And as individuals, we can control our actions, our reactions, and our behaviors. How we respond to everything in our day-to-day life is going to have interplay as to how we perform as athletes. And this is a very important topic of conversation, is that we need to ensure that we are managing our stress to the best of our ability. And with this in mind, if we are in a position in our lives when everything is very stressful, we feel like we have no control, we are overwhelmed, we are in over our heads with everything, it may not be the right time to step on stage. When we are pursuing this process, when we have a major goal in mind, we want to be able to pursue it with objectivity, with clear-mindedness, with accuracy, and not feel like this is another thing added to the pile. Although competitive bodybuilding itself is very challenging, it's very testing at times, and as a prep ensues, it certainly feels more challenging as fatigue sets in and hunger sets in, and we start questioning ourselves how we look and whether we'll be ready or not, and it essentially becomes a stressor in itself. It can't feel like a burden, and if it feels like a burden on top of everything else in life, it may not be the right time. Competitive bodybuilding, should never feel like a job. It is something that we chose to do. It is something that is testing. It is something that is an exciting challenge. We are putting ourselves in a position where we are essentially testing ourselves against the most basic cues of our physiology. Our body wants to rest and our body wants to be fed. And in the depths of a contest prep, when we're getting close to show ready, we can't do it. Not until our body is at a point where we can justify taking our foot off the gas, adding more food, resting a bit more, and ensuring we're coasting into game day. The body doesn't want to be extremely lean. The body doesn't want to be extremely muscular. And in order to obtain these variables, we need to ensure we're in a position where we can do it efficiently. Now, I know quite a few people who use bodybuilding as a means to escape the various stressors of day-to-day life. And it is a very healthy outlet to release stress, to release emotion, to have something that we can truly control. And again, that's what bodybuilding is all about. But we cannot disregard the stressors in our lives and focus solely on bodybuilding, because when the prep is done, when the lights are off and the tan is washed off and we start establishing another off-season phase and we normalize as human beings, those stressors are still going to be there waiting for us, and we're going to have to give them our attention. It's likely a more realistic situation, a more beneficial situation for the bodybuilder to take care of those stressors first and then decide the right time to do a bodybuilding contest. Bodybuilding should be an integrative part of one's life where it can be incorporated into a day-to-day life in efficient fashion so we can train and eat and recover like bodybuilders, but ensure that we are giving attention to other aspects of lives so there is a medium which allows us to pursue it. I don't like the word balance, because balance implies allocation of energies relatively evenly across all things. And if someone has a major goal in regards to bodybuilding, which does entail providing a lot of energy in one's life towards it, one's abundance of energy is going to be put towards that goal. So again, I don't feel it is necessarily finding balance, but finding a medium to allow us to pursue it most efficiently. When considering this medium, it is also important to ensure that we are in a sound place financially to pursue a bodybuilding preparation. Everything that comes with bodybuilding, the food, the training, the registrations, the tan, the suit, if you are working with a coach, it doesn't come incredibly cheap. And we need to ensure that we can allocate funds reasonably and responsibly towards the goal. And if we can do that, that is a wonderful thing. It means that we're in a position where it is not a stressor to put money towards bodybuilding. If it means setting money aside over time to ensure that we have the funds to pursue this goal, that's completely okay. Once again, bodybuilding is about leveraging time, not only for physical manifestations, not only for having psychological well-being prior to pursuing the goal, but ensuring life is in a position where it is realistic, where it is responsible. And if it is realistic and responsible from a life perspective to pursue it, the goal once again will be that much more efficient to obtain, because pursuing it doesn't create stressors in the back of our heads where we think, I need to financially recover from this when it's done. I need to repair relationships with people when this is done. It comes back to creating a medium where we can pursue this accurately, have fun with it, test ourselves, but at the same time, not put ourselves in a testing situation when the prep is done. Everything that's been discussed here today is truly in individual to individual circumstance. Someone's rate of change in terms of muscular development, someone's timelines required to be contest ready, someone's financial situation, someone's psychological well-being. Case in point, it's incredibly important to remember that we cannot compare ourselves to anybody but ourselves. The only proxy we have for progression is ourselves. And we have to essentially ask ourselves from a day-to-day, week-to-week situation, are we truly getting better? Do we feel better? Do we look better? Are things moving in the direction that is conducive to pursuing a bodybuilding goal, to being a successful bodybuilder? And bodybuilding pursuits, once again, are not exclusively about physical manifestations. It's about yielding improvement in all aspects of one's life. If we're speaking exclusively about the parameters of being a good bodybuilder, muscularity demands, conditioning, symmetry, proportions, presentation, the color of our tan, and in turn, placings on show day, we still can only compare ourselves with ourselves, because we cannot control who we are against on that stage on a given day. There may be a show that a bodybuilder does where they win the show, but they're the only person on stage. They take time to grow after this show, and they take an extended off season, and they have an extended contest prep phase leading into their next show, which is a much larger lineup. And say they place 5th out of 10 instead of being the only person in their class and they won. But they're more muscular, and they're more conditioned, and they're more confident. The placing indicates that they've gotten worse. But in comparing stage shots, it is very evident this person has improved. We can't control who we're up against. We can't control how many people are going to be up against us on game day. We can control our actions, our reactions, and our behaviors. These will lead us to successful outcomes if we ensure that we are efficient with our actions, that we are clear-minded with our reactions, and our behaviors are in line with being successful bodybuilders. That's what bodybuilding is about. Personal progression, nothing else. And I understand the competitive nature of being a bodybuilder. People want to be the very best. People want to be winners. And there's nothing wrong with having the winner's edge. There's nothing wrong with having the eye of the tiger. But at the end of the day, these are variables that we have no control of. And if we drive ourselves crazy about things we can't control, we're never going to be able to see what we've accomplished. There's always going to be something else that we are seeking. There's always going to be something else that we're yearning for. Despite the reality, there's always going to be someone bigger, always someone faster, always someone stronger, and always someone smarter. Does this have any bearing on us and our ability to make change? Absolutely not. We need to audit ourselves and say, am I doing everything in my power to be the best I can be today? Am I doing everything in my power to create a successful future for myself tomorrow? Those are the important questions, not what the next person looks like on social media. Are they bigger than me? Are they leaner than me? Are they better than me? It does not matter, because you are not them and they are not you. We have to do the very best we can with what we have, and that has to be enough. I truly feel like the aspect of control is the part of bodybuilding that makes it so truly special. We have this creation of our own, our physical body, that we can manipulate through nutrition and through movement and through hard training and through the art of presentation, of posing. And we have the opportunity to display it on stage. That is essentially the outlet in which we perform. That byproduct, that look on show day, that physique that has been created, is dependent on our ability to execute, our ability to put everything we can into each variable. And at the end of the day, we can ask ourselves, have I done everything? Yes or no? Has any stone been left unturned, as we might say? And if we haven't left any stone unturned, if we've ticked every box to be our best, that has to be enough, because we can be confident in our final byproduct, because we've done everything we can with the knowledge we have in the here and now. And in time, obviously, there's going to be much more to learn, because there's always something to learn. There's always homework to do. And if we do our homework moving forward with the same accuracy and the same conviction and the same passion, if not more, because there's willingness to learn, then inevitably there is going to be improvement. And improvement is the name of the game. I hope that everyone listening today has found some benefit from this discussion. It's certainly something I could talk about endlessly, and it's also a discussion that can be dissected. Every point of this conversation can be broken down into further detail, and that's certainly something that will be done in the long haul, because there's lots of details to talk about. And bodybuilding, although seemingly simplistic in its application, is quite complex in the underlying reasonings behind the decisions we make. Bodybuilding is a science. Science can be complex, but also very exciting and very fun. And with all that in mind, I appreciate everyone who's taken time to listen to today's EDT talk. I hope I didn't go off on a tangent, because I tend to do that, but it's honestly just because I love bodybuilding. I love discussing bodybuilding. I love pursuing bodybuilding. And if this is of any value, me sharing my love for the craft with all of you listening, then that's a win in my book. So that'll wrap up today's episode of EDT Talks. I am Eric. Thank you for listening, and we will see you guys next time.